Hey, Mr. Hardy here. Hopefully at this point you have checked out our intro video to see some of the sites and tools we've been using, including a TI-84 emulator. Now yours won't be in your hand like mine is here, but to be able to use through your Chromebook, or there's also some versions for laptop and desktop computers as well. So if you haven't done that, please check into that because that could be helpful here coming down the road a little bit. Now, how's this going to work? Here's our first actual lesson that we're going to be dealing with in our flipped classroom, which means you're watching me on some sort of a device right now, doing some practice, and then hopefully asking some questions, either during class, during a Google Meet, something like that. So it's really important you're hopefully doing this, and good job, because if you are, you're seeing me right now. So these packets we have, do not worry. This is not like a single week, day, anything like that. This is for a unit. Okay, this is for unit 1. Included in here, if you haven't checked it out yet, are going to be some notes, some examples we do together, some practice for you to try it on your own, and also some answer keys so you can check your answers. But it is important you work through this part as well, because it'll make the quizzes that we do online a lot easier to work with. So we'll get into some more of that later. Let's get down to business here. Let's do some algebra. So first today we're going to talk about exponents. Okay, exponents, we've done them for quite a while now. We're getting the idea. Just a little vocab here to go back over. Okay, the number that we're taking to the particular power, 2 to the 5th power, is called our base. Okay, that's the number we're multiplying by itself this many times, called our exponent. And then this entire thing together is called a power. Okay, 2 to the 5th power, 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 would be 32 if we actually multiplied it out. But when we're writing as exponents, the only thing we care about is, change up here, how many of the base do we have, because that becomes the exponent on my base. So anytime the base changes, 1, 2, so does our exponent for that base. So bases have to be the same. I can't add these up and call it xy to the 5th or something like that. It wouldn't work. The only real exception to these we have to be a little bit more cautious about is when we get into multiple pieces in our base, the 6 and the n. So if I were to just write this as 6n to the 4th, and this minus 3 is just hanging out here, I'd be close, but not quite. Well, what's wrong? Well, the way this is written right now, the 4 only goes to my n. Well, I also have 4 6s. So to make sure that 4 gets to both the 6 and the n, I have to have the parentheses on here. Because if I don't, that's going to get me into trouble. Okay. And then same also, when we're using for exponents, when using a calculator, it's important basically that you type in exactly what you see. You can't get careless. Like here, for instance, okay, negative 3 to the 4th is all these negative 3s. Now, if I pull up a calculator and I just follow what I see, negative 3, and again, when we're doing the negatives here, let me pull this up a bit. This and this are different. This is the negative, this is minus. So when you want it to be negative, we want to make sure we're using this button. Negative 3 to the 4th, because there is my caret button. That's my exponent button on these. And I get 81. Well, why? Because negative times negative is positive. Negative times negative is positive, and I can get that same answer either way. Okay. Now, if I change it up a little bit and just do negative 3 to the 4th, I get a different answer. Okay, why? Because now what's happening is I'm multiplying all these 3's together, which equals 81, but that 4 is only going to the 3. It's not going to the negative, okay, like it is here with the parentheses. So now the negative just kind of gets tacked on at the end. So it's a little difference, but it makes a big difference when it comes to our answers. So I've got to make sure that we're getting that set. Okay. Order of operations, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, amongst other ones you probably dealt with and continue to deal with on these. It's the order that we have to take things in. And what I want to stress to you here is, when we talk about parentheses, I don't mean the multiply type. I don't just mean that two numbers are next to each other and it's 2 times 6. That's not parentheses like we're talking about here. Parentheses is there's an operation going on inside. Okay? Exponents and radicals, multiply and divide, these are on the same level. So if there's ever multiples of those in there, we just do the one on the left, the furthest to the left first, move to the right. And same with addition and subtraction. You start with whichever one is furthest to the left and work your way to the right. So when I'm doing this, you're like, couldn't I just stick this all in my calculator? For some things, yes. But if we get to a point where there's some variables and things that start to get thrown in, we don't want to get caught off guard. So here, I'm just going to work my way through. So I look and I go, okay, parentheses. Right here. This is what I'm talking about. So when I do my parentheses there, -4 plus 2. Notice I'm not changing anything else. -2 plus 5 is 3 squared. And I'm like, okay, that's my only set of parentheses. Now it's exponents. Be careful. It's not 2 to the 2 times 3. It's only on what's in the parentheses, 3. That's why we always put them there. So this is next. 3 squared is 9. And now my only 2 options left are plus or times, because that's what the parentheses are. Well, multiply comes before add does. So I'm going to multiply next. And again, just let me stress, the temptation is, it is there. You want to just, I'm just going to put in the calculator hard and be done. I get it. But when we start looking at order of operations, when variables, again, get included, I don't want you to be falling off the wagon on me at that point. I promise. None of these are going to be like 8 or 10 steps. This is as bad as it's going to get. Okay? So stick with me. Stick with me. All right. Letter B. Now, here as I was going along with this, I would challenge you, if you're at home right now, to hit the pause button. Try B on your own. And then unpause it when you're done and kind of see if you think I'm correct. So if you're going to do that, hit pause right now. I'll give you a moment. And then I'm going to start back in here. Okay. First things first. Parentheses. I'm leaving everything else alone. Okay. And we're looking really similar again to what we had in the first one. The squared again is only on the -4. And what's negative times negative? It's positive. So -4 squared is 16. If you want to double check that in the calculator, you can. Just make sure the parentheses are there. Let's see what comes next. Add or multiply. Multiply does. I like to underline the part that I'm working on in that step in case there's an error later. I can see what I was looking at. Or maybe if you've got the option of colors, okay, you can change the color of the step that you're doing. I'm going to try to do that with some of these as well. And we got the one trickster left here. -5 squared. Now remember up to what we just had here. There's no parentheses here. So we're in the same situation we were here. It's 5 squared, which is 25. But then the negative comes on. So we're only squaring the 5, not -5. Probably the trickiest part of this whole part here. Let me get our answer. Now here's the last part with these. Now you're going to say, so you're looking at this and you're going, well, okay, so that's subtract and that's add, but this bar is divide. So I'm going to divide first, which is true, but like hard, you put more and more rule in here. Now I can hear some of you at home already. Here goes the math thing again. He's just making up rules as he goes. Where'd that come from? Why weren't there parentheses there to begin with? Good question. But here, since my answer is, since I have to divide first, how do I know which pieces to divide? I have to know what the numerator equals. I have to know what the denominator equals before I can do the divide part. Okay? So that's my way of being able to do that in this case. So in this case, 8 minus 3 is 5. 3 plus 2 is also 5. And oops, excuse me. Now I can actually do the division that I was asked to do. Like, well, what if I just put it in the calculator? You know, this is one of those, I'd be like, I'll just do it that way. Okay, let's say you don't do the parentheses. Let's see what happens. Ruh-roh, that's not 1. Because what did the calculator do? 3 divided by 3. Okay, 3 divided by 3 is 1. 8 minus 1 is 7 plus 2 is 9. But that's not what we have here. Okay, that's one of those, again, keep this in reference when you're doing stuff just to help remind you with those things a little bit. And as I'm going through these, whether you're in class or one of our virtual learners, please, if you're working on some of these and trying the practice, and literally you've watched this video and you've tried the practice and you've checked your answers and something still is not clicking, for the love, email me if you're not going to see me in person for a couple of days, or or if you're remote. But let me know. That's how I'm gonna be able to help on these things. I will make extra videos. We can make this happen. Okay. All right. Evaluating. Fancy way of saying solving an algebraic expression. Basically, it's substitution. Okay. If they tell me what the x value is on something, what that means is I'm going to plug that x value into every place that there's an x. But here's my big reminder. We're going to do it in red. You always substitute with parentheses. So when I'm writing this out, and I'm plugging that -2 in, I'm always going to use a parenthesis to make sure I don't have a sign issue. So -2 went in for each of the x's, color to let me see that. And now I go into my order of operations mode. Okay, these are multiply, these aren't parentheses, so I don't do that. Next is exponents. -2 squared is 4. Then I start looking and I'm like, okay, multiply, add. Well, multiply is first. Okay, if you want to do 2 steps when it's the same concept, when it's the same mathematical expression, I'm okay with this. -3 times 4 is -12. -5 times -2 is +10 plus 7. And now, since it's all addition, we're just going to go left to right. And if you want to go to the calculator here at this point, you could. But I think you can do this. Y'all deal with money. If I owe somebody $12 and I get 10 back, well, now I only owe 2, plus another 7 is going to put me 5 ahead. If you want to double check an answer, okay, as simple as going back to this step, okay, and doing it that way. So we always are going to have options. We just got to work through some of that a little bit more. Okay. Parentheses, we can't say it enough. Got to make sure we're keeping that important there. Combining like terms, again, terms are going to be separated by plus or minus. So that separates this into 2 terms. 2 is a coefficient, the number in front of a variable. 4 is a constant, which is a real fancy mathematical term of just saying it's a number, okay? It doesn't vary at all. It doesn't have a variable. And so when we're starting to take a peek at that, okay, like terms have the same variable part. They both have x. Oops, I should have taken the negative with me. They're like terms, okay? The 7 and the 8 are both constants. They're like terms. So combine the like terms in order to simplify. And I apologize, my 3x minus 4 shifted over from my 3 here. We'll chat about that in a minute. So don't have that there right now. And what we typically tend to do is we find the terms that are alike. Now here's one more possible pitfall. What number is in front of a variable if you don't see one? 1. So sometimes I like to put the 1s in there because now I can look and say, hey, 3 minus 1, because there is still a number there, is 2. N squared, notice, we don't touch the exponents. Okay? Leave the exponent alone when we're combining like terms like this. And then this is the only n term. So plus n, if you want to put the 1 in, that's fine. But the exponents, even on a variable, have to be the same to combine them. I can't combine these and call this n to the third. Okay? Only put the ones that are identical or alike with the same variable part together. If they're parentheses, we got to do a little bit of work before we can do that. We're going to do a little distributing. When we distribute, we multiply. So 4 times 5 is 20. X times x, how many x's are there? 2. So x squared. Then 4 times 4 is 16. And don't forget, you still have an x here from that, so we can multiply that out. And that's the only stuff to do with the parentheses here. Don't distribute the 4x over here. That is not in the parentheses, so that gets left alone. And now we go back to what we were doing in the last step. Do I have like terms? Well, I don't see any other x squareds, so we'll leave that part alone. And then the x's, watch your signs. 16 minus 18. Well, 18 minus 16 is 2, but the 18 has the bigger number, so we keep the negative. And we're set. And my apologies again here on number 3. I'm just going to rewrite it underneath here. So it's 2x plus 1 minus 3x minus 4. We'll get that cleaned up here. Same thing we saw in number 2. Distributing to do first, multiplying the 2 times the x and times the 1. And then over here, yes, take the sign as well. Multiplying the negative 3 times x, and negative 3 times negative 4 is 12. And now we go looking for like terms. 2 minus 3 is negative 1. 2 plus 12 is 14, and we're off and running. It's nothing too bad. So now this last part's just going to be a little bit adding a little extra something to what we got going here. So more evaluating expressions. Simplify the fractions. Leave them as improper, not mixed. So again, we're going to plug numbers in with parentheses. Again, if you've got colors, I highly suggest them. And again, here, try to challenge yourself to do some of this in your head, but if you need to go to the calculator for some help on some things, that's not bad. So negative 2 to the 4th is going to be 16. 3 times negative 8 is negative 24, and usually here I'll get asked, well, what if I put plus negative 24? Same thing, absolutely works. And then with these, I always look at 24 minus 16 is 8, but the 24 has a negative and it's bigger, so it's negative 8. And for any of these steps, you can use a calculator to double check. Okay, fractions. Same deal. Don't let it freak you out. We're going to plug in the negative 3 for x. Don't forget those parentheses. And then down below in the denominator, we're going to plug in that 2 for y. And again, whenever we get a large fraction like this, simplify the numerator and denominator separately before you start to simplify. So if you're going to try to go to the calculator, you'd have to have parentheses around all these things. But let's just clean it up. It'll avoid that problem. Negative 3 squared. Negative times negative is positive. We get 9. 2 times 2 is 4, because we multiply first. 4 plus 1 is 5. And if you're not sure it simplifies, yep, here we come again. 9 divided by 5. If you get a decimal, leave it improper. Or even, I'll teach you another trick here. If you're using the emulator that we've got for the Chromebooks, if you've got some other calculators, most of them will have a fraction button. But for us, if we want to know if this reduces anymore, if I hit math and hit enter twice, enter, enter, that will show me the simplest fraction form of this. I don't want 1/4, okay? I don't want 1.8. We just want to leave them as improper. And finally, gotta pull some of the geometry in, man. It can't go away. We couldn't have that whole year for nothing. Write an expression for the area of the figure, then evaluate for the given variable. Okay, so first things first. Area of a rectangle. Oh, remember? Length times width. Okay, so what does that mean? That means our area is length times width. Now, you can choose to leave it this way, or you could go ahead and distribute the a through. A times a, 2a's is a squared, plus a times b is ab. Either of these are an acceptable form of the area of the figure. Okay, this is my expression. I'm even going to write that here, just so I have that note later. So then, evaluate. Well, what does that mean? It means I'm going to plug these numbers in to get the answer. So if I evaluate, if I do it this one, I'd have a times a plus b. 8 plus 13 is 11. Times 8 is 88. If I did it this way, okay, if I plugged it into this one, because I did this instead, I'd have 8 squared plus 8 times 3. 64 plus 24, still 88. Okay, multiple ways to get to the same thing. Happens a lot in math. Last one, now I'll just give you a little more guidance, a little more support, a little more rah-rah here, and we'll have you ready to go. Ooh, area of a triangle. Anybody remember area of a triangle? Okay. Two ways you can write it. I have a preferred way here, but well, again, we'll show both. You can do 1/2 base times height, or what I like to do when I'm actually calculating, because dividing by 2 is the same as multiplying by 1/2, is just to use this. Because either is acceptable, okay, is my expression. But what I can do now, if I do it this way, is I'm not going to have to mess with the fraction. I would just look and I'd say, okay, so my base is 40 plus 10, which is 50. So my area is going to be base times, my height is just n, so that's 40, divided by 2. Simplify the numerator first. Okay, 50 times 40, we pop that in there, is 2,000. Divided by 2 is 1,000. If I had units, it would be square units, but I don't have any units here. So, okay. You've kind of walked back through this. And when you're watching some of the videos on this, if there's a section, you see an example, and you're like, yep, I've got it. Go. Okay, go, man. Go try, or lady, whoever you are. Go ahead and work, then try some of the practice ones. And if they're going good, then you're in good shape. But if you're struggling in some places, that's the nice thing about having a video. You can fast forward me, rewind me, mute me. You can't do that in person. And work on some of those things, okay? Keep these. I'm going to want to see them at some point, just as you're working through the material. You will get points for it. So it's a valuable piece, not only in learning, but for your grade as well. And what I'd like you to do is work on some of the practice problems. Now, I'm expecting you're going to do every single problem on every single sheet with the practice. That's up to you. You know you. Especially when I'm only seeing some of you a couple times a week. Some of you I'm not getting to physically see. If you have questions, you can have them. Okay? There's an answer key in the back. If you flip through the pages, you can check things as you go. And again, if you have questions, ask. Okay? I am happy to help you in any way I can. And we're going to kind of be in progress on what this is going to look like. Whether that's going to be me making extra videos, I might jump on for like a some sort of Google thing, whatever it is. They changed the name so much, Chat, Hangout, Meet, one of those things. But I'll always keep those posted in my Google Classroom as well. So thanks for working with me on this first lesson, and I hope to be seeing you all again